So I'm curious, what is this value and what is this toast? I want to look at the source code for this. So you would push Control B or F12 or whatever you set it up to be, and it says, hey, I tried to look at the source code for this, but the source code isn't available. So two things here. The pressing of the key Control B is a custom key that I set up, which is a shortcut for ReSharper. But you may like F12, which is the default go-to source. So let's go ahead and customize that. We'll go to Preferences, we'll type in the word key, and it says, here's your keys. This is where it's defined, when you push this key, it does this. So in my case, I did Control B, which is what it's defined as by default. So what I want to do is search for that. So I sort by binding. I go down and I find Control B right there. So open declaration is what it's called, and if you wanted to change that to F12, you could. Now it's F12. But you'll notice over here it's conflicting with this activity editor. So let's sort by name, go up to activity editor, and I'm going to remove that because I don't want to do any of that. I want to do that. So now when I hit apply, I hit OK, and now I go down here, and instead of Control B, I hit F12. It'll go to the source, or it should. You can actually click on this to go to the different declarations as well. So, why is this not doing that? In window, oh well. I like it as Control B. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the source code because I want to look at the source. Help, install new software, and then add Android source code. I'm going to specify this URL, which I will add to our list here. So that's the URL. And then it says, oh look, here's my Android source code. Do you want to download it? I say, yep. Hit go. It goes out and retrieves it. It says, this is what I'm going to retrieve for you. And I say, okay. You want to accept this? Yes. Finish. And then that is going to go out and download. And this will take a little while, so I'm going to pause it while it downloads. I'll resume when it's done. Alright, so I just finished downloading that and installing that, and it says I need to restart. So I said, okay, go ahead and restart. Alright, so now that I've installed the source code, I've restarted the interface. Now if I go to Toast, and I go to Source, it actually shows me the source code, which is really nice. If you're familiar with ReSharper, ReSharper has the same feature where you can say, show me the source for string, and it will download the source code to system.string and show you the source code just like this. And the cool thing about this is you can actually debug through this stuff. In fact, by default, when you download this and you have the source code, it will try to debug through it. And we don't necessarily want to debug through everything. So what we want to do is we want to go to step, which takes us to Java, debug, step filtering, and this will filter which things we will be stepping into. And basically we don't want to step into anything that is a library, a referenced library from either Eclipse or Java. So I'm going to use step filtering, I'm going to enable all of these, and I'm going to add more. Basically what happens is Visual Studio allows you to specify which things you want to debug into or step into, and Eclipse is the other way around. It will step into everything unless you tell it not to. So I'm going to add add a package, and I'm basically going to add all the top level packages. So anything that starts with Android dot, we don't want to step into that. Anything that starts with com.android, anything that starts with let's see, com.android, com.google, we don't want to step into that. So that's our entire list. Anything that's not in that list is most likely going to be our code, and that's what we want to be stepping through. So we want to go down here, filter static initializers, filter constructors, simple getters, simple setters. Probably don't need to step into those because all they do is get set. Constructors might want to step into those. Static initializers, probably not. Hit apply, OK, and there you go. Now you won't waste a lot of time stepping into the Android activity object or any of its methods or properties or anything, and we'll just step into our stuff. So at this point, we're pretty much ready to test this. When we hit the click button, it should change the title of that text, and it should show us a toast message. So let's go ahead and if we wanted to debug through this, we will hit F9 or whatever your key is to put a breakpoint, just so we can test out the debugging feature. And then the first time that we start up, we'll notice we hit this drop down and it says there's no launching history. It doesn't know what to launch. So we hit that debug configuration. We double click on Android application because that's what we're doing, that's what we're debugging. Hit browse, there's our project, launch the default activity. The target, if you are debugging with a device, a hardware like your phone, then you would want to set this to automatically prompt to pick device, and it will pop up a little interface and it will say, hey, I noticed that you have this hardware device and you have this options of an emulator, which one do you want to use? And you could pick the hardware and off you go. In this case, we're just going to be messing around with the emulator, and so automatically pick the emulator and start it up. And then you could choose to wipe user data before you start or disable the boot animation. I'm just going to keep them. Hit apply, hit debug. That starts the program in debug mode. You'll notice down here in the corner, it's in the process of compiling. So it's getting ready to launch, it's compiling your stuff, and when it's finished, auto monitor logcat, yes, I want to do that. I want to automatically pop that up whenever an error occurs. And then you got this other one that says this kind of launch configuration depends on the open perspective, and this is the debugged perspective, which is what I mentioned earlier. So it's going to create a new perspective up here, and I'm going to say yes, remember this, and yes. So now we have this new debug perspective that pops up. I'm going to hit yes on the logcat. This layout is kind of funky, so I'm going to move these down to here, move this down to here, move my logcat over to here, and then I'm going to minimize this. This is your stack trace up here. So if you wanted to trace through your stack trace, you could just click on these and it will show you where did these things come from and on up. So this is where we're currently at. I don't need to look at the stack trace, so I'm going to minimize this. And then here's the outline of where your code is currently executing from. It's in the main activity under the button title text, or the right here, create.